Welcome to Criminal Stories. The cold winter wind swept through the deserted streets of Buenos Aires, filling them with an air of mystery. The city, wrapped in shadows and flickering lights, seemed to hold its breath. On a dark and lonely street, the desperate scream of a child broke the silence of the night. Startled neighbors came out of their houses to find a gruesome scene. The body of a child lay lifeless on the ground, his eyes open in an expression of terror. The news of the macabre discovery spread quickly, plunging the community into a state of alarm and bewilderment. Who could be capable of such an atrocity? The authorities, faced with a chilling enigma, began to unravel a plot of horror that defied all understanding. Could it be a young killer whose actions were driven by a dark and impenetrable mind? The answers to these questions would reveal a past full of secrets and an even more disturbing reality. The investigation began with a diligence and urgency that reflected the gravity of the case. Inspector Lorenzo Galvez, known for his insight and determination, took on the responsibility of leading the team of detectives. The first light of day revealed a heartbreaking scene, and the weight of responsibility fell on Galvez like a lead cloak. The victim, identified as Pedro Fernandez, an 8-year-old boy, had last been seen playing in a nearby park. His disappearance had left the community dismayed and frightened, demanding answers and justice. The first testimonies indicated that Pedro had been seen in the company of a teenager named Cayetano, a young man with an innocent appearance but a disturbing gaze. Neighbors remembered Cayetano as a solitary child, often seen wandering the streets with a disturbing expression on his face. His eyes, dark and penetrating, seemed to hide secrets no one wanted to uncover. Galvez and his team began tracking Cayetano's movements, investigating his past, and interviewing those who knew him. What they discovered was disturbing. Cayetano had a history of violent behavior and had been implicated in several previous incidents of aggression. As the detectives delved deeper into Cayetano's life, unsettling details emerged. He had been born into a dysfunctional family marked by violence and abuse. His father, an authoritarian and brutal man, had imposed a reign of terror at home, while his submissive and fearful mother could not protect her children from constant mistreatment. This toxic environment had nurtured a growing fascination with violence and death in Cayetano's mind. School reports and interviews with neighbors and classmates revealed a disturbed mind that found pleasure in the suffering of others. Teachers recalled incidents in which Cayetano had shown inexplicable cruelty toward classmates and small animals. His classmates whispered about a boy who seemed to enjoy others' pain, someone who smiled at others' misery. The accounts painted a chilling image of a young man whose empathy had been eroded by years of abuse and neglect. A crucial clue came when Galvez discovered a notebook hidden in Cayetano's room, full of dark drawings and writings describing acts of cruelty in horrifying detail. The notebook's pages were filled with images of suffering and death, portrayed with disturbing precision. Among the pages, a detailed account described a crime that matched the scene of Pedro's death. The detectives felt they were close to unraveling the mystery, but the lack of solid evidence kept them on edge. As detectives dug deeper, disturbing details emerged about Cayetano's life. He had been born into a dysfunctional family and had been a victim of abuse and mistreatment at home. This toxic environment had nurtured a growing fascination with violence and death. From an early age, Cayetano showed signs of troubling behavior, torturing small animals, and enjoying others' reactions to his cruel acts. School reports and interviews with neighbors and classmates revealed a disturbed mind that found pleasure in the suffering of others. Teachers described him as a problematic child, always getting into fights and showing a morbid fascination with pain and death. A crucial clue came when Galvez discovered a notebook hidden in Cayetano's room, full of dark drawings and writings describing acts of cruelty in horrifying detail. The drawings showed graphic scenes of violence, and the pages were filled with detailed descriptions of how he would carry out his atrocious acts. Among the pages, a detailed account described a crime that matched the scene of Pedro's death. The detectives felt they were close to unraveling the mystery, but the lack of solid evidence kept them on edge. Although the notebook was a crucial piece of evidence, they needed more proof to build a solid case against Cayetano. The community, trapped between fear and the thirst for justice, began to clamor for answers. Police patrols increased, and parents watched their children with eyes full of concern.
The streets of Buenos Aires, once full of laughter and games, were now marked by an unsettling silence. The residents' murmurs became a chorus of suspicions and fears as the fear that Cayetano might strike again loomed over them. Galvez, feeling the pressure, intensified surveillance on Cayetano, waiting for the right moment to capture him. Each passing day without a resolution increased anxiety and panic in the community. Finally, on a dark and rainy night, Galvez and his team followed Cayetano to an old abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. The factory, a crumbling building covered in graffiti, stood as a grim remnant of the past. With a mix of anticipation and fear, the detectives prepared for what they were about to discover. They burst into the place, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they advanced cautiously. What they found inside defied all description. In the center of the factory, Cayetano had recreated a kind of macabre altar with personal objects from his victims. There were broken toys, pieces of clothing, and torn photographs, arranged with chilling precision, photo after photo. Each innocent face was glued to the walls, watching from eternity. The black and white images captured moments of happiness and hope, now transformed into symbols of terror. The sight of those faded faces filled Galvez with a mix of revulsion and determination. He knew he had to act quickly to prevent Cayetano from taking more victims. The community, trapped between fear and the thirst for justice, began to clamor for answers. The echo of unsettling murmurs spread through the streets, and the atmosphere grew tense. Police patrols increased, and parents watched their children with eyes full of concern, fearing that the monster who had taken Pedro's life might strike again. The once peaceful nights were now filled with shadows and distrust, as glances turned vigilant and whispers of alarm spread through the neighborhoods. Galvez, feeling the pressure, intensified surveillance on Cayetano, waiting for the right moment to capture him. Under his direction, the police implemented a careful strategy, monitoring Cayetano's every move. Each passing day without a resolution increased anxiety and panic in the community. Time became an implacable enemy, and Galvez knew he had to act with precision to prevent further tragedy. Finally, on a dark and rainy night, Galvez and his team followed Cayetano to an old abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. The factory, a grim remnant of days gone by, stood as a monument to abandonment. With a mix of anticipation and fear, the detectives prepared for what they were about to discover. They burst into the place, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they advanced cautiously. What they found inside defied all description.
In the center of the factory, Cayetano had recreated a kind of macabre altar with personal objects from his victims. There were broken toys, pieces of clothing, and torn photographs arranged with chilling precision. The fragments of childhood life now formed a mosaic of horror and despair. The walls were covered in black and white photographs, each innocent face watching from eternity with an expression of truncated happiness. The sight of those faded faces filled Galvez with a mix of revulsion and determination. He knew he had to act quickly to prevent Cayetano from taking more victims. Cayetano was arrested without resistance, his cold and empty gaze revealing a terrifying disconnection from reality. He showed no emotion, neither fear nor remorse. He seemed to be in a trance-like state, his mind lost in an abyss no one else could understand. As he was taken away in handcuffs, Galvez felt a mix of relief and horror. Although the killer had been captured, the true extent of his actions was just beginning to be understood. Every detail that emerged from the investigation revealed a more disturbed and dangerous mind than anyone had imagined. The emotional scars left by his crimes would take time to heal, and the shadow of the case would continue to haunt the community. The trial of Cayetano Santos Godino was a public spectacle, with every disturbing detail exposed before the eyes of the community. The testimonies revealed a twisted mind and a childhood marked by abuse and neglect. Psychiatric experts described Cayetano as a developing psychopath, incapable of feeling empathy or remorse. The community, torn between horror and compassion, watched in disbelief as the darkest facts were unveiled. The climax of the trial came when Cayetano's notebooks were presented as evidence. The detailed accounts of his crimes, written with chilling coldness, made it clear that each act had been premeditated. The graphic descriptions and macabre drawings provoked an overwhelming silence in the courtroom, leaving everyone with a feeling of unease and fear. Finally, Cayetano was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The verdict resounded like an echo of justice in the courtroom, providing a respite for the victims' families and the entire community. Inspector Galvez, although satisfied with the justice served, could not help but feel a shadow of sadness for the lives lost and the pain inflicted. The images of the children and the macabre scenes had been etched in his mind, leaving him with emotional scars that would take time to heal. He knew that although Cayetano was behind bars, the trauma of his actions would endure in the hearts of those affected by his evil. The Buenos Aires community tried to recover from the nightmare, knowing that although the killer had been stopped, the scars of his actions would remain forever. Conversations in the streets and plazas were filled with memories and tributes to the young lives cut short. Families, united in mourning, found comfort in each other's company and in moments of reflection and shared memory. Vigils became healing rituals where candles were lit and words of hope were spoken. The story of Cayetano Santos Godino was a testimony to the struggle between darkness and justice, and of how the truth, no matter how painful, must come to light. The case became a permanent reminder of the importance of vigilance and early intervention in cases of disturbing behavior. The community, united by pain and hope, found the strength to heal, but would always carry the memory of the young lives so cruelly taken. Parks and schools, once scenes of play and joy, now had memorials in honor of the victims, reminding everyone of life's fragility and the need to protect the most vulnerable. Justice had prevailed, but the echo of the crime would forever resonate in the hearts of those who had witnessed its horror. Galvez, though marked by the experience, continued his work with renewed determination to protect his community. Every new case he took on carried with it the memory of the children he could not save, driving him to seek justice with unbreakable intensity. The story of Cayetano Santos Godino was passed down from generation to generation as a grim reminder of evil's ability to infiltrate everyday life, and the constant need to remain vigilant and compassionate. The community of Buenos Aires, though marked by tragedy, found the strength to move forward, united in its commitment never to forget the victims and to work together to build a safer and more compassionate future.